Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Voice of College Football channel here for Week 8 of the Pac-12 Chat Show Live. It was quite a weekend with some ups and some downs across the Pac. Continues to be one of the strongest conferences in the country, despite some debacles in South Bend. Guys, we got Tim, we got Chris, and we've got Larry, our favorite Pac-12 pilgrim and Utah guru. Here with us tonight, LBC Trojan has to be Mr. Dad while Mrs. LBC is out of town. Guys, how was the week?
I'm not sure if that...
I don't. But good for Larry, not good for me, not good for Tim.
I don't know if that was rhetorical or not, because I think we know what my answer is and Chris's. But yeah, Larry's in a good mood probably.
It was a good week for Larry. Congrats, Larry. The Utes are looking good. All right, gang.
Thanks,
let's first hit news of the week. So we still don't know what's happening in the world of the Pac-2. The Pac-2 to be. We have a couple of quick updates. The conference continues in mediation, and there have been all sorts of interesting revelations this week in the papers filed because of the University of Washington's motion to intervene and dismiss the lawsuit from Oregon and Oregon State, and from the which is, I think, bogus, but the wrongful termination suit that the fired executives who had tried to hide the Pac-12's Comcast overpayment scandal, who then got their butts fired as a result, have revealed. And one of them I think is very interesting is that we now know that USC and UCLA did not agree to give up their votes. And at USC and UCLA have instead insisted that they have remained, and this is from June 2022, and then also Colorado from immediately when they left the conference, all have said they maintain their status in the bylaws and they maintain their status to vote. However, they were recusing themselves from participating in media rights and expansion negotiations. And if you actually look at the documents, gang, they pretty hard kind of steamroll past a lot of the claims being made. So it's going to be interesting to see. Any thoughts here, guys, on what's going on here with the future of the conference?
I don't have anything like brilliant to say about this, other than the whole thing. I don't know. The whole thing going back more generally, right? Like, kind of sucks.
Yeah,
but
it does.
But as to the money, I find the idea of like a Washington State, Oregon State 2-team conference for a couple of years, like, somewhat hilarious, and I kind of hope it happens.
It would be kind of cool.
Especially if they have like an automatic bid. I just think it would be like something you tell people like 20 years from now about this ridiculous time when this 2-team conference existed that had a berth to the playoff. Like, I think that would be kind of awesome and hilarious. But as to like the legal minutia of it, I haven't, to be frank, been following as close as probably some of our Beaver and Coug fan friends have.
It's certainly interesting. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep you guys posted. All right. We've got a few fun games this week, gang. And I'm looking forward to a few of them. So let's start with our teams. Kind of wild. We have 4 Pac-12 teams, and our favorite Pac-adjacent team, Notre Dame, are on bye weeks. Gang, thinking about the teams that are off to bye weeks, who needs to regroup? And who is going to get healthy for a good run down the stretch? Any thoughts on these 4?
Tim, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I see Arizona's a surging team. They're getting better. If you're looking at where they started the season to where they are now, they're playing great ball. I also think that the Beavs are playing strong. I don't know. I don't think they have anyone too dinged up that I know of, but I almost think that's coming at a bad time. The Beavs are hitting their stride. DJ's been playing great the last couple of games. It's almost like they probably don't want, I hope they have some injured people to get healthy, because otherwise this bye is just going to slow them down. They've been on a tear lately. So, and I don't want to talk about the Irish. If anyone wants to fill in about them, you feel free, go right ahead. They're not my favorite team this week.
Well, the the interesting thing about Oregon, like not having any quarterback play last year, is even if DJ isn't good, they just they play Aiden Childs one drive a game, and all he does every time is go in and score a touchdown. So like Oregon State is obviously they got it humming a little bit, but like you were saying or like hinting at, Arizona I think is the most interesting team on this list compared to like what we might have thought of them versus what they are and what they look like. Like you look back at like some of their losses, they don't look that bad, and you look at what they did to Washington State last week and what they like that game in Arizona, I think it's in Tucson against Oregon State the week after this bye, is like incredibly intriguing to me. Arizona might be pretty decent. Colorado obviously got embarrassed. Real quick on that note, I think it's like over 300 times that it's happened, or over 200. I don't want to exaggerate. I don't remember the exact stat, but I do know that like no one has ever lost a game when it's 28-0 or more at half. Because like how often is a team shut out and up by 4, like down by 4 touchdowns? Like usually that means one team's a lot better than the other one. But somehow Colorado found a way to lose that game at home, despite that. And like they're gonna have trouble. They might not win a game all year. It's funny, like after week 3, right? Everybody is really excited, and even the people that were like kind of down on them, right, are still like, well, it looks like this is a bowl team at the least, right? 6-7 wins. They might be stuck where they're at, and they might win 1 or 2 more, but the schedule's not easy. Cal's on a bye, getting ready for the Trojans to come to town next week and shock the world.
It's gonna be wild. Larry, any thoughts on the teams on a bye?
Colorado seems to just still be trying to get their footing. That's about it.
All right. Shall we get into the games that are happening? We got some fun ones. First game. And I think this one had a little bit of the wind deflated from its sails. But going into Autzen Stadium, Oregon, fresh off a loss to Washington, taking on Washington State, our missing partner in crime, LBC, much to his own dismay, is taking the Ducks in a big win. What have you guys got?
Yeah, so like you kind of said, the shine's kind of come off of this one. I was thinking, I don't know if the shine has come off Oregon as much, but like the fact that Washington State, after I was hyping them up as the most underappreciated team in the conference, for a bunch of weeks, they went and lost to UCLA, who's like a good but flawed team, and then lost to Arizona in an eye opener. I think they're kind of banged up, and I think that there's some rumors surrounding the coach. I don't really want to speculate. I don't know enough to know anything. I don't think anyone knows anything, but I hope the wheels don't fall off in a way, and they might, and the schedule doesn't help them because they still have this and Washington and whoever else. But and it's going to be an uphill battle the rest of the way, and they're not getting any help because they're playing an Oregon team who is very, very good and is going to run over them. Real quick on the game last week, for the Dan Lanning decision making on 4th down. Just because I've seen a lot of people talk about it. I'm actually happy of how many people like fought back up against this, but the people that like think he shouldn't have gone for it, like 4th down at the end of the game, he was definitely correct in going for it. And I think that anyone that thinks otherwise is either misinformed or they've been watching too much Big Ten West football. Because punting is not the correct decision there, even though it did not work out for them.
The punt in the second at the end of the game, I agree with you, was bad call. But what about taking the 3 points earlier?
At the end of half, that one is much more debatable. The first 4th down and goal, right, is a totally valid, good decision. The only reason that the one at the end of half is different is because it's end of half. I don't know specifically on that because I didn't ask, but I asked someone that knows someone that would know definitively the answer and would know what Dan Lanning is looking at making that decision without getting into too much detail. And the other ones are definitely fine.
Yeah, the one thing in the game was no brainer, I agree, to me, because they lost both their corners, and we saw how fast Penix was able to move the ball. He knew that they were going to score him. So I'm all for that. You know, you get a couple of yards, you can salt away a game, right? You give the ball back to Penix, he's most likely to score. So I mean, I get that one, but this isn't the first time Lanning's done some weird stuff. So I'm not sold on his coaching. However, I am sold completely on the team as a whole. I think they are by far the most well-rounded team in the league right now, defensively and offensively. They're not the best offense, they're not the best defense, but all around they're solid. They're a very solid team. So I got them winning this game.
Yeah, and in case I didn't say it, Oregon wins by 3 or 4 touchdowns, maybe.
All right. What do you think? Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, Oregon. Sorry.
Larry, who have you got in this one?
Oregon.
Oregon? What do you think? Big, or is it going to be close?
Big.
All right. It should be a good one. Well, I'm going to agree with you guys. I think I've got the Ducks. I mean, they really looked good, and Wazoo looked so bad. I think Wazoo will be better than we think, but it may get out of hand. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. All right. Next up. And by the way, there's 3 night games here for the Pac. There's only 4 Pac games this week because of all the teams on buys. 3 of them are night, and 2 of them are Pac-12. We got dueling Pac-12 after darks coming up. But prime time nationwide on Fox. We've got number 18 USC versus number 14 Utah live from the Coliseum. No surprise, guys. LBC has USC. Who have you guys got?
All right, I'll try to be quick so you guys can duke it out. Like Utah obviously righted the ship last week with the win over Cal. This game's interesting as heck, right? Because like we're gonna see Utah's defense versus USC's offense, which is like really good, like mostly good on good. Except the line play, I think, is going to be interesting. Maybe you guys can talk about that. And then it's also Utah's offense versus SCU's defense is also interesting, but for completely different reasons. So yeah, again, like if this was in Utah, I think, give more credence to the idea of a possible upset. The spread is only 7, but since it's at the Coliseum, and since Caleb Williams is still really, really good, despite the fact that he didn't play a very good game in Notre Dame. I think I have to take them to bounce back at home and score enough that it's hard for Utah to keep up in the end.
Yeah, I'm just gonna flat out say it. I would be more worried about this game if it was at Rice-Eccles. It's not at Rice-Eccles. I have all the respect in the world for their offense, but I have 0 for their defense. For their defense, but 0 for the offense because they have crown jewels on that team and Rising and Keefe, but they're not playing most likely. And even if they were to come back off those, the long injuries, knee injuries with no warm-up games, it would be hard to see them playing at the level they did. I think that the Ute fans had a season stolen from them with those injuries. With those 2 guys, they're contending with this defense. With both of them in that lineup, they're competing with anybody in this conference. I mean, this defense is really that good. But they've had lots of trouble. I mean, a lot of trouble on offense. Matter of fact, they rank 123rd in yards per play And on the season, they only have 16 chunk plays of 20 yards or more. Just 16 on the entire season. The quarterback play has been spotty, but their safety, they kind of play the two-way player, running back, VOCFB. Dude, that guy has put a spark onto this team, and this is really amazing athlete. I'm worried about what he might do against the sometimes porous USC defense. I'm hoping, though, that the defense I've seen for 7 quarters in a row holds up, because this is the recipe for them. Recipe for SC is a team without explosive plays, and this is your team at 120 in the country without explosive plays. Let's hope, though, that when you see a defense that gives up explosive plays, that all of a sudden the Utes don't turn it on to some level. I do think being at home and with the lack of offensive production, no matter how good their defense is, USC finds a way to win and cover.
There, who have you got? Oh,
I don't. This is a pick 'em. Am I lagging or am I okay?
go ahead. Well, don't worry about it.
You're good.
Okay, so I think this is going to be one of those games. It's going to be a slugfest. I think Utah's defense, if they can force Caleb to be Caleb that played against Notre Dame, and either get some defensive touchdowns or help their offense, it's going to be pretty key. And so it's going to be a good game. Zachariah Branch is going to be an issue for Utah. He's an issue for anybody, but I have to go with my home boys, Utah here, and I have my reasons. So
They're fair.
I think, I mean, Tim and I can talk about it a little bit. I think SC, I've been doing some film breakdown, and Lincoln Riley's kind of getting predictable on offense. So I think Utah's going to be okay. Hopefully our offense doesn't turn it over, because SC's defense, I think they're ball hawks. And if Barnes is the quarterback, he's known for not seeing defenders. And USC has a real good guy in Bullock who seems to hide back there. So I'm going to take Utah by a field goal.
Utah by a field goal. I like it. All right, gang. I've given this one some thought, and it worries me a lot, because are we going to see USC look anything like they looked against too many of the recent games, but especially last week, where it was just awful across the board? And I think this game, I actually like the wording from one of the USC podcasts I was listening to earlier today, where they talked about things. So this game is going to give us clarity. We need to find out who this team really is, and I think we're going to find out here in this game. Is this the team that we think it is? Is this the nightmarish team that we watched blow a lead against Colorado, play terrible at the beginning against Arizona State, and lay an egg against Notre Dame? Or is this going to be the team that destroyed Stanford, that ran Colorado into the ground and ran a huge comeback against Arizona? Who is this Jekyll and Hyde team? We're going to find out, I think, against Utah, because Utah has the team that we can score on, we hope. They have an offense that hopefully our defense will be able to stop. And if the USC team plays at all like they're capable of, I think USC could run away with this. It's also in LA. The Utes are always Supermen at home in Rice-Eccles, but LA has not always been the greatest place for them. So I think USC could definitely make this a big win, but they could also blow it. So I'm going to take down the middle, and I'm going to say USC in a fairly close one. But it's going to be a heck of a game, and I'm looking forward to watching it. Hope you guys will join us. All right, and join us live after the game for USC Postgame Live with Tim and Rick. Should be a lot of fun. All right, another one, gang. Washington, the darlings of the pack right now. The Dogs are hosting their nemesis, Arizona State. Now, they haven't won at Arizona State since 2001, but this one is at Husky Stadium. LBC says the Dogs are going to absolutely eat them alive. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that sounds right. ASU is coming off a bye, which they needed desperately injury-wise. I frankly don't know the extent. I haven't looked into the extent of how many people they might have coming back after that bye week. But regardless, this Washington team is too good. And ASU is starting. ASU had like hopes of, not necessarily winning this game, but looking pretty good. So I'm kind of interested to see what they do and if they're starting to get some guys back and how they look, because they did have some close results, but the close result against Colorado and to a lesser extent SC kind of don't necessarily look the same as they did as when they happened. So yeah, maybe Washington plays down for a little bit coming off the big win at Oregon, but even if they do, they can score in seconds. I'm not ready to call them 2019 LSU like I've seen some people do. And it's possible, like offensively, but that's a big thing to say, given how great that 2019 LSU offense was. But this one's real good too. And, they gave us a show last week against Oregon. Both those teams did. Both those teams are playoff caliber, in my opinion. So yeah, they win and they win easy.
Yeah, they're slowly kind of like the defense for me over at Oregon. My happy point, just looking forward to eventually meeting up with the Huskies, is the fact that I didn't think much of their run game, but they ran the ball well, good enough last week against the Ducks, and Ducks have a pretty good defense. So they got that coming together. But I'm worried because they might be looking forward to that Stanford game next. Okay, no, they're not. They're not going to be looking forward to Stanford. So they're going to win and they're going to cover easily. Yeah, I mean, I think it's what, 28 or 27 spread, whatever it is. They'll cover that.
Larry, who have you got?
Give me the Huskies by, I'd say 17-20. I think Arizona State, I think he's going to have a few trick plays up his sleeve, and I think they'll come out and it'll be close up to halftime. And then I think Washington just pulls away. That's where I'm at.
So here's what I think. As I said, Washington hasn't beaten Arizona State in Tempe since 2001. That humiliating loss last year was a disaster for them. It knocked them out of the Pac-12 championship game. It probably kept them out of the playoffs. And I think those Huskies are going to be hot and bothered for that. And I think they're going to extract some revenge. Bow down to Washington. I got the Huskies by 1 billion. I think they're going to get some revenge. And by the way, Sean Bryant has joined the channel. Thank you, Sean Bryant, for joining the channel. You guys get memberships here to the Voice of College Football. Tremendously helps Mark and our whole community. And while we're at it, everybody, if you could just real quick, we know everybody asked for this, but no matter where you're watching from, what device you're on, if you could just click like and subscribe, it makes all the difference in the world. Just whatever thing you're on, just click the little like button. It really helps a lot. And so we really appreciate it. So definitely do that. All right, next up to bat. An interesting one. We've got UCLA headed to Stanford. Guys, Stanford seemed hapless. They pulled a miraculous comeback last week at Colorado. And our co-host, LBC, says, upset city. Stanford always gets somebody. And he says this year, it's going to be UCLA. LBC has the trees. Who have you guys got?
So, unfortunately for LBC, Stanford used up their random get somebody game this week against Colorado, and so the random Stanford game curse has already been taken care of. But on UCLA, as a fan, so men's water polo beat SC last weekend, and it looks like it could go undefeated on the way to a national championship. And we have a bunch of international guys coming in. It's almost basketball season. I'm looking forward to it. We have a Utah transfer Larry might be familiar with. They love that kid. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the rest of the imports. Elaine Fablui, Adai Mara. Like, all right, I ran the joke into the ground, so I'll actually talk about the game. But the idea of the idea of the previous statement was to say that they did it again, right? It's like anytime we've been on the precipice of doing something to set ourselves up to like take the quote unquote next step or whatnot, right? We haven't done it. And winning either one of the Utah or Oregon State games would have done it. And the frustrating thing about that is that I think I don't think either game is a game that we should have won, but they're definitely games that we could have won if we approach them differently. So that's all that. I'm just disappointed, and I'll get over it because there's other more important, worse things in the world than your football team losing. But the good thing is that we get to play Stanford here, and Stanford is not very good despite the fact that they beat Colorado. I think Colorado is more likely closer to Stanford than the team that we thought they were, or some might have thought they were after week 3 or so. So I have UCLA to win this, maybe not comfortably, but in the end, depending on if we throw another pick 6, somewhere in the 10 to 17 point range.
Yeah, I'm just seeing. I mean, even what I've seen from the Stanford defense, and what I know about the shortcomings of the offensive line at UCLA, I don't think that that's going to be a major issue. I do believe that he's going to break his streak of pick 6s in this game, and I think that UCLA beats Stanford. And I think they even cover too, 17.
Something like that. All right, Larry, who have you got on this one?
I've got UCLA by 14 to 20, somewhere in that range. I think Stanford had, like Chris says, they had their one upset already. So give me the Bruins.
They always get that one, and I think you guys are right. I hate to disagree with our beloved LBC here, but I don't think Stanford is going to have much of a chance against UCLA. UCLA has a really good defense. We saw Stanford's offense last week make some great strides, but they were making those strides against Colorado. I think UCLA is going to shut that down. UCLA's offense isn't great, but the Stanford defense has more holes than Swiss cheese. So I guess we'll see who's right here. Is it going to be LBC or the rest of us? But I'm going with the men of Westwood on this, and I'm going with UCLA big. So that is one Pac-12 late night game. Do we have another one? No, we've hit them all. All right, gang. Well, we've got something else. We got a special thing tonight because there's only 4 games. So we've got a special feature for you guys tonight. So some of you guys know this, some of you don't. I actually wrote an ebook that is a wild timeline history of the craziness that is the Pac-12. So if any of you guys are interested, we'll put the link in the chat. The link is also in the description. We'd love for you guys to get it. But we're going to go through 12 or 13 wacky truths about the Pac-12. And then everybody, let's talk about which one you think is your favorite or the craziest. And we want to hear from you guys in the chat too. Talk to us about which one you think is the craziest. All right, first one, reboot. Did you guys know the Pac-12 is much newer than it claims? It was actually founded in between 57 and 59, but then in 1968 voted to pretend that it was founded in 1915 instead. They just adopted the history of a different conference that came before it and have pretended that that was them the whole time. It's a lot like if, Britain claimed to be the U.S. claimed that we were founded by William the Conqueror in 1066. Like, absolutely not true. But part of the funny part about the Pac-12. Next one, coup de Pac. Chris, did you know this about your Bruins? Stanford and Oregon conspired twice with Wazoo, the Beavs, and Idaho to kick UCLA out of the conference. failed both times, and instead, this was in the old Pacific Coast Conference, UCLA, USC, and Cal blew it up.
If you come after the king, you best not miss, or something.
Exactly. They came after the king, and Stanford and Oregon missed. How about this for cheaters? So Stanford always feels like they're better than everybody. So Stanford was always mad at everyone else for paying their players, but Stanford was just using excessively lavish academic scholarships with huge living allowances to do it anyway. Don't ever let Stanford tell you they're any better than they think they are. How about this one? Nukes. The entire existence of the Pac-12 has to do with nuclear weapons, because the guy that created the Pac-12 got all of his power and role and gravitas as the Nobel Prize winning discoverer of plutonium. So are there any other conferences linked to nuclear weapons? I don't think so. But that's not the only nuclear weapons piece we've got, because also the Soviets. Did you guys know Notre Dame tried to join the Pac-12? They actually took time out at a party during the a nuclear weapons summit in Geneva, Switzerland, at the Soviet embassy, where Notre Dame tried to get their way into the Pac-12 in 1958. How about this one, Chris, for a scandal? Your famous coach, Red Sanders, blatant cheater, wouldn't stop.
Champion
And a cheater. And they literally didn't know how they were going to fire him, because they were going to have to fire him. But thankfully, right before they were going to have to fire him, he died in a shady motel with a hooker and a friend. So they were saved the hassle. By the way, that is directly from the president of the University of California. They were going to have to fire him. How about a Big Ten save? We thought this was the first time the Big Ten messed with the Pac-12. It was not. By the way, if you guys think this is interesting, we got the link in the chat. You can pick up the ebook. UCLA and Stanford were in such a war that Stanford wouldn't commit to join the new Pac conference until the Big Ten forced Cal to make it happen, because the Big Ten wasn't going to sign the Rose Bowl deal without Stanford. But, Chris, here's your Bruins again. Stanford wouldn't join unless UCLA was forever banned from voting. UCLA was not allowed to vote when they started the conference. Cal got one vote for both of them. But then Cal wouldn't let Oregon join until after UCLA got its vote back. Another one, FBI spies. The boosters that helped create the PAC, Ambassador Pauley, CIA Director McCone, and Secretary of Defense McNamara, pushed J. Edgar Hoover to cover the Cal campus with the FBI, like blatantly spying on students and staff while they were creating the conference. Absolute craziness. How about Patty Hearst? You guys know about Patty Hearst? Yeah, well, her mom was actually one of the people that helped push the conference. Her mom, helped own the newspapers that their family owned. So when Oregon went to war, yeah, they destroyed him in the newspapers, demolished Oregon in the papers. And then the arch-conservative Mrs. Hearst had her daughter, who was a sophomore at Cal, maybe kidnapped, maybe not, joined a left-wing guerrilla group and had a year-long crime spree. Great, folks. And then Michael Crow. We always talk about Michael Crow from Arizona State. A lot of you guys can't stand him. You don't like what he's doing. You don't like the innovations he does. Well, the CIA really did, because they made him in charge of their venture capital firm. Yes, Arizona State President Michael Crow is such an innovator. The CIA made him chairman of the InQtel venture capital firm they created, which funded Palantir. So when you hear Michael Crow be the wild innovator, that is why. How about threats? USC and UCLA wanted Arizona and Arizona State led into the Pac-8, and they gave Stanford and Washington only 15 minutes to change their mind before they were going to quit the Pac, and made them go for it. And then one last one here, using Colorado. Utah secretly negotiated Colorado into the Pac so that it could be part of the process, knowing that Texas was going to screw it all up, and that would leave room for Utah to join. So if you guys like this, you can download the ebook. We'll put the link in the chat one more time. It's also in the description if you're watching. Gang, what do you think is the most ridiculous element of the Pac's history from here? What stands out?
I think it's ridiculous that in trying to, stop a nuclear war or something, we were busy arguing about whether Notre Dame should join the conference or not. That seems pretty absurd.
It's kind of great, isn't it? At the Soviet embassy, so there's probably KGB files on it. Tim, what about you? Anything? What stands out as the wildest history thing? Oh, Tim, you're on mute.
The embellishment of taking the PCC and and the years of conference ahead, it just seems like a typical Pac-12 thing to inflate what they are as a conference.
I do love that. Yeah, they just like assumed 50 years of history, just because. Larry, what stands out for you?
I'm gonna go with, since I'm an MTV generation person, I have to go with hookers in motel rooms. It's a scandal.
I love it. I love it. Well, hey, gang, if you like that, check it out. We put it all together for you guys. Folks have really gotten a kick out of it. Wacky history of the Pac. So just kind of a fun little break from normal here. All right, we're going to do our power rankings, but if anybody wants to quick call in or get ready to call in before we do the power rankings, we'll put the link in the chat here. It'll be just a few minutes while we do the power rankings, but we would love to have you guys join. We want to hear what you think of the Pac-12 this week. And as we get ready for that, let's dive in here to our power rankings. All right, guys, we had some changes this week, and usually as the season goes on, our power rankings get closer. This week, they actually got even more wild. So let's dig in and take a look. All right, 11 and 12. We had some shakeups. 11 and 12. Well, they're all Stanford and ASU, but some thought Stanford looked better and went above ASU. What do you guys think?
I think that the Stanford comeback was just a black eye for the Colorado. I'm not going to overdo that. Stanford is still the worst team in this conference. ASU shows that without the injuries they sustained, they probably could be a better team. But I mean, I think if ASU played Stanford 10 times, they probably win. I'd say at least 7 of them. So,
cosign.
Yeah.
All right, I'll tell you, I might think Stanford might be looking better. So we'll have to see. We'll see what this week brings as they play the Bruins. All right, now of course we all have the same bottom 4, but mixing it up, there is some debate here over Cal and Stanford. Or so it goes over Colorado and Cal. Guys, who's better, the Buffs or the Bears?
I just think the Bears are a better, well-rounded team compared to what Colorado is. And again, after that epic meltdown against, I believe, to be the worst team in the conference. I mean, we'll get to see it, right? And we're guaranteed to see the big game. But what I've seen from Colorado is that when they're hot, they're hot, and when they're not, they're not. And I think with Cal, it's more of just they're a good program missing a lot of pieces. So take for that what you. It's not if there's a difference, there's not much. It's more style points, I think, for me. One's more erratic than the other.
I actually think there is a bigger difference, but I don't know. I guess we will see. I don't have a lot of. I think all of the issues that they were able to scheme around and get away with early on both sides of the ball with their line play has like tremendously caught up with them. Not necessarily like in the Stanford game so much, but like it's just going to be an issue for the rest of the year. And I'm like looking at Colorado's schedule. I'm not sure who. I'm just not sure who I would even favor them against the rest of the year.
All right. By the way, two quick super chats here. Thank you to Sean Gardner. I love this. He says, Pac sounds like the Cleveland Browns claiming someone else's history as their own. And Sergeant Pickles here giving us a shout out as he says, bow down to the undisputed #1 Huskies. We will see who keeps the Huskies as #1 as we move forward in the power rankings. But next up, number 8, we got 3 Wazoo. And Tim, you've still got Wazoo up at number 6. What do we think about the Cougs, boys?
I've jumped off their defense, but I still think so. You're going to see it when you look at 5 through 8. I think it's almost a toss-up game for a lot of those teams. Period. I just like with I'm not being reactionary to like 2 weeks. I'm looking at a whole. Once they get I think they're getting their receivers back this week. I don't know. I think they'd beat a lot of the teams that I'm putting behind them.
All right. Moving on. Taking a look here, filling it on Arizona. We've got some range here. Chris, you are higher on the Cats. Certainly had a huge win this week. What do we think about the boys in Tucson?
I think that they're real interesting. I don't think that they're. I think like we've already seen them play one of the top. What I have is the top 4, but against the rest of the top 3, I don't think that they would have a prayer. Whereas I think some of the other teams that I have at 4 and 5 would. And this, I think the main difference that I have is that I have punished UCLA more for losing and see more of their negatives than you guys do. But that game out in the desert, as a UCLA fan, worries me a lot more than it did 3 weeks ago, for sure.
Especially with Fafita looking good.
Yeah, Jaden DeLora should not play another snap as long as Fafita's healthy. I mean.
All right. Next up, UCLA. You guys, once again, I have the Bruins the highest. I feel like I'm going to have to take a shower after this. Tim, you and Chris both have them the lowest. Boys, what do we think about the boys in baby blue?
I think their offense is a bit suspect. Their defense is lights out. The reason why I have Wazoo above Arizona and UCLA, even though Arizona destroyed them last week, is just because, I think they are getting healthy. They were dinged up for that game. I think overall they're more a well-rounded team, but we'll see. This middle is all year long. I think this little middle group, they've been kind of bouncing around a little bit, not quite making their way all the way up, not quite making it all the way down. They're just kind of moving. Arizona's moving up, and I think they'll continue to do that. But these power rankings are so tough between 4 and 9. It's just bouncing so much. So this week, this is how I felt it. I just put it down.
If we somehow fix things, then we could be as high as like 3 or 4 on this list, maybe. But given how good the defense is, but the offense has what's unfortunate, like game planning wise, against the teams that we lost to, is that I think that if we would have been more patient and played like it sounds like really silly and dumb, but like those old SEC offenses before they came into the 21st century with everyone else, where, you kind of just run the ball all game and say you're playing good defense and then take a shot on play action every once in a while and make it real easy for your quarterback and not do a lot, and make your mistakes not really hurt you as bad as our mistakes have, then I think those become more winnable games. Again, I'm not saying we deserve to win them or that we would have won them, but we could have played them better than we did. And until I actually see that from UCLA, I have trouble ranking them any higher than I did.
All right. Next up, the Utes, peppering in here at 4 and 5, and that means that numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 are set across the board. Guys, what do we think about the Utes? Are we going to learn more? Is Cam Rising coming back ever? What do we think here about the boys in red?
I'm just assuming that Rising is not playing the rest of the year unless something happens. So like, I'm just saying this is what this team is, but this team keeps winning. And I think maybe a few weeks ago, I don't see anyone I think they're at 5 by virtue of the fact that I have trouble seeing anyone below them beating them. But I think that the teams all ahead of them are better than them. Although for me, 4 and 5 play this weekend, so we'll see that.
Yeah, I have them there. 2 reasons: culture and defense. The offense is just I don't know. I mean, Larry's going to fill me in, I'm sure, but I'm just not seeing it offensively that they could beat any of the teams above them at this stage. You know, things can change. Someone could emerge, Rising could come back. You know, but as of right now, what I've seen. I might have had them a little bit lower even because of that offense, but I really do believe in this offense. And I just, that Utah culture they have going, they're tough. They find ways to win. That's why I have them at 5.
All right. Next up, number 3 and number 4 are the same, but we've got a little bit of dispute here, boys. Is it the Beavs or the Trojans in a game that I really wish we could see this year? But we don't.
This is maybe reactionary, but it's over 2. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
No, it's fine. I've had SC at 4 and I had Oregon State at 3 last week. I might have even had SC at 5, to be honest. I think they might have moved up in my rankings after a loss by virtue of what everyone else did. But yeah, no, until SC's defense proves it, I feel like if these two teams played on the field, or like Oregon's offense is pretty good. UCLA didn't play as well as they could, but yeah, no, I think that Oregon State's offense is would be able to move the ball pretty efficiently against SC. And while SC's offense is also prolific and they have Caleb, there were some warts against like a pretty good Notre Dame defense. And I don't think Oregon State's defense is as good as Notre Dame's, but I do think that they might be able to make some plays. And I think that Oregon State is just more of a complete team, not as good as the teams that are ahead of them, but I think that they're more complete at this point than SC.
So mine's pretty reactionary from my Trojan self-loathing about what I actually watch happen on offense on Saturday. I truly can't get over it yet, but I can tell you this, that USC should be a lot higher than this. But I think losing Gino Quinones from the offensive line, he was like neck and neck for starting. And actually, the first couple of games, granted that the competition was bad, but USC was running the ball fairly solid behind them. And him going down, I think now in hindsight, we didn't think much of it back when it happened because we thought USC would. I thought USC's transfers would gel really quickly and would be fine. But that right side of the line just has not formulated. So I am a big believer in lines. I will tell you, though, I think USC's defensive line is as good as anybody's defensive line on this whole screen. Maybe I'll pull that back. Well, go ahead. We can argue this all I want. I'd say I think UCLA's is very solid. I think that, Oregon's is very, very solid. But beyond that, I think USC has a ability to talk with anybody defensive line wise. And I put a lot of attention on that defensive line and the front 7. The problem is that they've gone from really bad as a whole defense to an okay defense. But in the meantime, it's shown that the offensive line has been exposed. Our offensive line is not nearly as good as I thought it was going to be at this point in the season. And I've got the Beavs ahead of us. When it comes down to it, though, quarterback play and all the intangibles, I could absolutely see this is a coin toss game for me, but I gave it to the Beavs because of the way they've been playing. The USC's been playing like crap. I think momentum is a real thing in sports, and so I gave the nod to the Beavers.
So I think USC has a better team than Oregon State. I don't know if they're playing better than Oregon State, but I left them up there because of potential. I remain really worried about the defense. I know that there was a lot of people were excited about the defense after the Notre Dame game. Because Notre Dame didn't really drive the field, but that's because USC kept handing the ball in the red zone. I'm not really sure if they needed, 60-yard drives instead of 20-yard drives and a 1-yard drive that we would have stopped them. So I'm worried about it, but I know that they have the potential to be better. So I guess we're going to find out. This is the game we're going to get some clarity on. And if I'll tell you what, if they look anything on Saturday like they looked last Saturday, I think they're going to be at like number 7 for me. So it's going to be really interesting to see. All right, unanimous, number 1 and number 2. But despite the fact that they played on the field just days from now, remember, these are power rankings. These are who would win on a neutral hypothetical field. We've got some debate. Boys, it's Oregon and Washington. Chris, you remain in Camp Duck.
Yeah, I just wanted to make Sergeant Pickles mad. No, I'm just kidding. This is basically my way of saying, one, I want to do it just to have the conversation, but 2, I think this is my way of saying, I do think that Oregon would be favored on a neutral field, but I think it would be like a point, right? It's razor thin. And I think these two teams are both like playoff caliber good. And if we get a chance to see it again, I think it would be super interesting. This is basically my way of saying both these teams are like very, 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 very good.
It's razor thin, so I gave it to who won on the field. Even though the victory was razor thin, I do believe in that offense now. Now that Washington is showing they can run the ball, I thought they were one-dimensional. Unfortunately, they're not. Washington is, the winners on the field, and they're winner in my heart because I'm a big Duck fan, as you guys all know. It was hard for me to do because I wanted to put the Ducks number 1, but Washington won out because they they won the damn game, regardless of where it was played, right? Yeah. So I'm sticking with the Huskies. I had them. I'm riding the Huskies until they show me otherwise.
All right. I thought Washington looked really good. I mean, Oregon looked great too, but Washington just looked really good, and they won it on the field, so I got to give it to them. All right, guys, that is our power ranking. So we'll see what happens this week. We got some more big games, and we'll see if the LBC's right. Are the Trees going to pull another big upset? But in the meantime, now we'd like to hear from you guys. So we're going to turn the phone lines open. We got a few of you guys waiting. Let's start. I think first was Mr. Spaz. Mr. Spaz, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, what's up?
What's up, Spaz?
How you doing?
What's up, Tim? Yeah, I got your sarcasm. I just got to give you shit,
What do you think about the Pac-12 this week?
You guys were pretty solid on your rankings. Didn't see any real homerism, which is shocking for Tim because he's so USC. But no, the real reason I called in is because I've been waiting the whole show for you guys to say something, and nobody's brought it up. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to jump in and bring it up. What about the article that came out today? Since you guys are all down there, is it a fake article? Is it written by some schlub? Or is there some reality that Caleb's brain is full of mush?
Wait, what article are we talking about? Are we talking about Caleb going to we're talking about Riley going to the pros, or is there something about Caleb?
I'm talking about Caleb stating that he wants controlling buying interest in the NFL team that drafts him.
I'm sorry, I was working all day, so I missed that article.
Is that on video somewhere, or is it just some
It's all over the internet. It's all over the internet.
There's a lot of things all over the internet
talking about it.
Well, I'll put it this way, right? Let's say he said it, right? You're not going to get things in life if you don't ask for it. They can say go fly a kite. I don't know of anything about that whatsoever. I know that coaches have gotten ownership shares by joining a franchise. I guess it's only a matter of time before a player would. I don't know. No clue on that one. Sorry, I wish I had more information. Yeah. Where did the article come out of? What was the source?
It was on Twitter, I believe.
Oh well, no,
Most
Spaz.
reliable
Hold on.
source.
Time out.
All right, what have you
Time
got
out.
that's not off Twitter rumors?
Well,
Yeah.
no, I mean it was. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Let's see. We'll just
That's
type
okay.
in.
You don't have to find it. We really don't care. I mean, a lot of stuff seems to get blown out of proportion. It really doesn't matter. What do you think about the games this week? Anything?
I'm really interested in that. If Cam Rising plays, who knows what can happen? But even if he does play, he's gonna be rusty. So you're gonna have that. But other than that, I know your offensive line is struggling. I know your defense has had issues all year, but from what I've seen from Utah without Cam Rising, they're not going to win down there. Like Tim said, if it was at Rice Eccles, maybe, but in the Coliseum, I don't see it, and I don't see Caleb Williams having 3 interceptions in the first half again, back-to-back weeks. It's not Dante Moore, true freshman, playing. It's reigning Heisman Caleb Williams playing, so it's a big difference. And I think Oregon's going to rebound and going to smash Washington State. And I think we're just going to roll to the Pac-12 and a rematch with Washington. That's my hope and prayer, and I'm sticking to it.
It's going to be a good one. All right. Thank you. We appreciate it. Good to have you, Mr. Spaz.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Right on. We'll see what happens. Hey, maybe Caleb will be the next Hallis. Who knows?
No, check out FanSided. Spaz, check out FanSided. It's a bogus rumor. So
okay,
just look it up.
All
right. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
I'm kind of
shocking that a rumor on Twitter was wrong.
I'm kind of disappointed because I wanted to see Caleb as the leader of the workers' revolution to take back ownership.
Proletariat rises up.
Yeah, it would have been pretty interesting.
I would expect that from Cal. All right. We got Sean Garner joining us. Sean, welcome to the show.
Gentlemen, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Not too bad at all. Great past weekend in the Pac-12. This weekend coming up here. I did want to mention a couple points about the Lanning Gopher too, because he's getting kind of crucified for his decision. And I think they're almost entirely results oriented. Like if any single one of those work out, he probably wins the game. I mean, and the chances of all of them failing, of all 3 of those spots failing, are probably pretty small. So it's
yeah. Sean, were you here at the beginning, or did you join a little bit later?
I heard your little analysis on it.
Yeah. No, I'm in full agreement with you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like any single person that says you should have won the last game, I don't want to hear you talk about football or anything ever again, because that was the clear.
I haven't heard anyone, John. I haven't heard anyone say that the punt was a bad idea. I think pretty much anybody that understands the sport.
No, it's on Duck. It's on Duck Twitter. But then again,
we're back to Twitter. We're back to Twitter again. We got to be careful. That's Twitter.
I have heard people say that he should punt, but you're right. The majority are okay with that decision.
And remember, though, you can't look at every decision and say, well, what are the odds of all 3 of them? Each one of them. Well, the first one obviously was made in isolation. The second one was made predicated on what's going to happen in the third one. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, I'm just saying, I think that when you're a coach and you're in a tight game, you take the points. That's the one I'm questioning. They lost by how many?
They lost by 3.
That's why you take the points.
Okay, but I'll say this. Just throw it out. What at that end of the half situation right there, what do you think the probability was of Oregon converting, making the touchdown?
No idea.
You really don't have any idea?
No, I'm just going off of years and years and years of watching coaches not take the points. For instance, I'll
What
go
year,
back to a
Ryan?
painful experience with me when USC was a big favorite over Stanford. At the end of the first half, USC could have kicked the field goal. They didn't. They lost. That field goal would have won the game for them. So when you have an opportunity, and that was against a big underdog, in a tight game, you need to take the points. And especially when you're on the road, you're a road dog. You just take the points.
Sean, 2 questions for you, or I have a question for you, and then I have a response for part of Tim's point. But what yard line were they on the
They're
fourth
at the
down?
3.
They're at the 3, 4th and goal from the 3, or was it? It was 4th and 1, right?
4th and goal from the 3, and there were 6 seconds left, so it was basically one play. Yeah.
4th and goal from the 3. Yeah. I don't know without looking at a certain chart what the exact percentage is.
It has to be about 42% for you. If you're at like 42% probability there, you're at like the break even point where the inflection point where it's an indifferent decision.
Right.
So anything above that is plus expected value. Anything below that is minus expected value.
Right. And I think it probably is higher than that. But I'd have to look it up. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. I know like 4th and 1s are like 90 something %, right? Like
probably not that high. Probably not that high, but they're close.
But the second point is, Tim, the counter to your argument of like take the 3 and whatnot isn't, and it's a tight game and whatnot. I hear you, and without knowing the percentages, I don't know what side is like technically correct math wise, right? But the only counter to that argument is, yeah, it's close, but field goals aren't going to win this game because Washington's going to keep scoring touchdowns on us, and you have to score touchdowns to win this game. It didn't come out that way, but I would expect that they thought the fourth quarter, which only had like a touchdown a pair, would have been a lot more high scoring than it was. And their defense ended up playing a lot better in the second half, but without knowing that in hindsight, I think part of the reasoning of going there is that 3s are going to lose the game.
I mean, I think it just boils down to you have a higher expected outcome by going for it because your likelihood of converting it is above that threshold of indifference. So
Tim, I'll put it this:
you're actually, in theory, leaving points on the field by kicking the field goal. You're going to make more over time going for it than you are by kicking the field.
I think you guys are getting too into the weeds with the analytics because technically you aren't losing points because 3 is more than 0. I get what you're saying, but the analytics say we have 42% chance of scoring, blah, blah, that's 4 more points. Therefore, you should go for it. I understand. I do believe in analytics, but analytics, it's not a lock. It's a situation where it's a lock. There's still a 60. There's a 60% chance you're not going to score. So
I don't want to drag it out, but my argument is slightly different than that. It's not about the expected value. It's about the need to go for the increased variance of the higher number because of what you expect the total score of the game to be. And in a really high scoring game, you need to score more, or else whereas they didn't expect the difference between 3 and 0 to mean as much as it turned out to. And then really quick, I think Dan Lanning even said in an interview that when someone asked him about all of the decisions, he said the only one he should have done was kick the field goal. So I think Dan Lanning even said it, but said the other two is who he is and they're correct. But lastly, and to my point, back to the really high scoring game kind of thing, this decision is way different in a game against Utah, where it's going to be where you expect them not to score as many points against you. And I think in that game, in that situation, they're way more likely to kick than they were in this Washington game where they're expecting Penix to score a ton of points on them.
One last point on this before I end this.
Hold on, Sean. Hold on before you get your last point.
Okay.
So the thing is that it wasn't a high scoring game because it didn't end up being a very high scoring game at all.
It didn't end up being, but what was it at halftime?
Yeah, it was on pace to be about a 40-point game.
I think the score was like 22 to no. It was the first half was higher scoring than the second half.
It was 22-18 at half.
Yeah, it's 40 points at halftime. That's
I'll say it was on pace to 40 at half. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But it didn't end up being a high scoring game, is what I'm saying.
Okay. All right, and I just one last point. Like it could be at the end of the game. It could have very easily been that them passing up those 4 points would be what cost them the game. Just as you can say in hindsight, looking at the results, like in that field, and of course everything changes everything. Of course, of a football game, so that's that's a fairly moot point. Like if they kick that field goal, everything about the rest of the game changes, and if they convert that touchdown, everything changes. Like nothing's the same. All right, that's enough of that. Okay. USC Utah. I'm fascinated by this game. Just a weird way. I don't know what to expect because I don't know what to expect out of Utah's offense right now. Putting Bryson Barnes in the game last week, I haven't watched any of it. I don't know how the game went. I haven't even looked at a box score, but they scored 34 points, and they looked the previous few weeks before then like they couldn't put 34 points against Utah Valley if they played them. I mean, this and USC, I mean, like where's their head going to be at after that showing last week? I expect them to be very motivated. I mean, this is a chance to come out and have a real quality win, and I like teams generally coming off the rebound, which is why I like USC in this game. But I don't know. I mean, do we have Pilgrim here?
We do.
Yeah.
He's here.
All right. I did want to know why was Bryson Barnes not starting the last several games?
Well, because against Baylor, he was playing really bad. I mean, he threw an interception to a guy 8 yards in front of him. So he got yanked. Nate Johnson came in and gave him a spark, got him 2 touchdowns. And so that's why he kept the job.
But he held on to the job for a long time with pretty putrid results.
Right.
I mean, so I don't know. I mean, you watched the game. I'm sure I didn't. Was there something different in their
in Utah's game?
Just their energy, in their game last week.
Oh, well, what happened is against Oregon State, we didn't have our running back to Quindon Jackson, and he's actually a lot of the reason why we had won against UCLA and Baylor. He was out, so we literally didn't have a running game to lean on. So that they stacked the box. Plus, you don't have a real good running game to lean on because one of your backs is out. So that's kind of an untold story of the Oregon State game. Is Jaquindon Jackson, who's our leading running back, wasn't playing.
I'm glad you're on because I wouldn't have even looked to that as a factor in that game. But yeah, so I mean, is this Utah team? Do you think like they're mature enough to handle this? I mean, this team seems a little different than a lot of the Utah teams in the past. I mean, are they?
Yeah, it's a junior
Yeah.
laden team. It's mainly made up of juniors with a few sophomores. So as
Yeah.
you could see, they went on the road. You know, everybody in the pack this year seems to be having a little bit more of an issue on the road. It's not just, everybody used to say, well, Utah at home versus on the road. It's kind of everybody's been kind of reflecting that this year. And so, I mean, Utah went up to Oregon State and held them pretty good. And then we lost our backup defensive end and gave up another touchdown. So, I mean, they went up to Reeser with a bad offense and still held DJ at Reeser to 21 points. So the defense is legit. Offense is pretty bad right now. So getting some running backs in there is going to help our quarterback a little bit. So
Right. Awesome. That's it. I still like SC in this game because I think you guys have all the motivation going into this game that I'm not exactly sure. This 20-point line for Oregon against WSU here. Does this seem to be like a harsh reaction to this past weekend? I mean,
To losing 44-3
six. Come on,
Arizona.
Be fair, Tony. 44-6.
I'm sorry, 44-6. You're right. My bad one too. I shorted you guys 3 points.
Yeah, but all these games are completely independent from each other. I mean, yeah, they laid a massive egg, but
the Pac-12, they feel more independent than they do in the Big 12 some days. But 44-6 at home in the Palouse, like it's hard to lose. I mean, it's tough to win a game on the Palouse, let alone win a game 44-6, let alone beat Arizona with your backup freshman quarterback doing it.
I think it's more than just to answer your question directly, though. I think it's more than just an overreaction or like a reaction to how bad Washington State got beat by Arizona. I think that's part of it, but part of it is it's Oregon in Autzen, and this Oregon team is very, very good. And I think there's a lot of teams in this conference that they're favored by, like by 20 over. And I feel like, I think I'm wondering how much what this spread would be if that game hadn't, if Washington State hadn't gotten blown out like that. And I don't think it would all of a sudden be like 13 or something. I don't think it moved that much just because of that one result.
You don't, because I think if this game was played a week earlier, this would be about a 9-10 point spread. This is game.
I don't think so. Maybe
you
I'm
don't
wrong.
You don't think if this game was played last week, it would have been like much shorter than this? Because I mean,
Oregon. It pains me to say this, but Oregon's pretty darn good.
Yeah. Oh, they definitely are. They definitely are. Hey, Tony. Any chance you can put out an audio book of your?
Yeah, so we may actually make it into like a video series. We're talking about that, like trying to put it together in a video series. But it's really cool actually. It's a kind of a timeline. It goes through the PCC and the Pac-12 and how they interrelate. And also some elements, believe it or not, where the creation of the Pac-12 is linked to the creation of the Ivy League, where they did this, and they come together, and it's where they did this wild thing, like believe in 1952 that the future of college football was in TV money. And so there's lots of this kind of stuff all mixed together, and how that history came about, and how we got to where we were with Larry Scott, and kind of where it went wrong. And then really breaks down a lot of the realignment stuff in ways that nobody's ever looked at it before, and puts all the realignment in the 50s and the realignment in the last 2 years together. Like I said, in some different ways that I think you guys would really get a kick out of. So I'll put the link in the chat again. If you guys check it out, I've gotten some people have really liked it, and we're gonna make some updates to it and keep it updating. Anybody who downloads it, we have your email. We'll send you updated copies as we make future versions.
All right. Well, you'll have my money. in a few minutes here.
Oh, we love it. Thanks. Sean, I
Tony.
think you'll get a kick out of it. It's some wild history.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for your patience tonight, guys.
Hey, I'm glad to have you.
Always enjoy it. Have a great one.
Fight on, Sean.
Right on.
Yeah, I don't think Victor's caught up yet as far as Washington State. So that line I think's about right because he seemed to have been like one of his favorite receivers, and until he gets 100%. I mean, I know he played in the game last week, but he doesn't look right.
I think they're missing a few. I think they're missing a few guys.
Yeah, they're tight in as well. But that's why I think he's back and playing, but he's high ankle sprain. They could tape him up, whatever, but he just doesn't look right. I mean, I think Arizona took it to him. I think they're going to win that game. But I think he got uglier than it actually was because of the injuries for Washington State.
Tim, what does it feel like when a game gets uglier than it should be? I don't know.
I'm blocking that out, Tony. I'm going to my happy place this week. I'm pretending
Tim
like that
goes to
didn't
happy
happen.
place, and I laugh so we don't cry. All right. Hey, we got two friends of the show. We're just going to bring them in together because we got them right there. We got Jackson Johnson, and we got friend of the show, Connor Johnson, the dual Johnsons here.
My little brother.
I like it, boys. Welcome to the show.
What's up, everyone? How's it going?
Good. How are you
doing,
guys
Jackson?
tonight?
Hey, Jackson.
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited about talking about that book pretty soon. That's going to be awesome, Tony.
Yeah, we're going to go on Jackson's channel, The Jacksonian, on Tuesday. We're going to talk a lot about the wild history of the Pac. Jackson, what's your favorite Pac shenanigan you've seen from it so far?
So far, I'm loving the story of Coach Red Sanders. That is he was a wild boy, it seems.
He was wild. I'll tell you one other crazy thing about Red Sanders. We're actually going to put this in the next update. I should have put it in and I forgot. He's the one who picked that UCLA would switch from wearing dark blue to light blue. And you know why he did it?
Why?
Because in black and white film, baby blue looks just like grass. So he started putting UCLA in the baby blue and the gold and those light gold pants because on old black and white film, it's really hard to see the players on the grass because it all looks the same monochrome gray. And then they went with the fancy numbers they have because they were really hard to read on film.
Innovator, champion.
Oh, man.
He was brilliant. Yeah, so UCLA's uniforms are all about being really hard to read on old video, black and white film.
Oof. Oh, man. I can't wait to get to the rest of the ebook. It's amazing. I haven't gotten to the part yet where it's at the Pac-8, but I'm getting there.
Okay, you're getting close. The Pac-8 has some wild stuff too.
Oh yeah,
the Arizona.
But yeah,
the realignments were wild.
Oh, they were. I mean, I know that you guys had Idaho, Montana at one point.
Yeah,
that was pretty wild. I want to go over a little bit about USC, Utah. Now, I'm looking at the defensive category of Utah. They are 5th in points allowed per game, 2nd in rushing yards allowed per game, 9th in total yards allowed per game, tied 7th in red zone defense, 1st and 3rd down defense, 2nd in first down defense, but the one weakness is the secondary, it seems. Tied 44th in passing yards allowed per game. I'm
pretty good.
Liking where Caleb Williams can light up the passing yards on Utah's defense.
Well, Jackson, the thing that worries me about that defense is that the way teams have been successful against USC the last couple of weeks is stopping the run and playing them tight man on the outside. And they've been getting to USC with 4 and 5 guys. So the passing windows have been tight. It's just been bad. And a recipe, what you just named, is a team that could absolutely do that.
Yeah. I mean, I still don't know who I'm picking on that one, honestly, because it's just like I'll know more about it tomorrow because it's a tough one because I know Utah seems to have USC's number, and I know the line is that USC is -6.5, but I know Utah's offense is a disaster. And sorry, Larry Pilgrim. I know that Utah. I know that the offense is a disaster, and y'all don't have Cam Rising, but that defense is nerve-wracking. But I am happy to say USC's not gonna get whipped. They're not gonna get spiked like they did last Saturday. No worries there. I'm thinking it's more like
unless they have 7 turnovers again.
I doubt
and
that's
no turnovers inside the 20. Right? You know, hey,
Yeah.
Larry, a little bit about Sione Vaki. Can you just give me a little more? I know he's playing both ways. He's a stud, but yeah, I didn't see the whole game. I don't like the box score watch, but he was 15 carries for 158 yards and 10.5 and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. So you remember, gosh, was it last beginning of this year or it was the end of last year? And I made a comparison and I said, he's not that guy, but he reminds me of an ex USC Trojan named Troy Polamalu. Remember, I made a comparison, and
I think I do remember that.
Yeah, that was the guy I was talking about. He's a freak athlete. The guy, he's 210 pounds. He benches 400, squats 560, has a 38-inch vertical, has a 10.4 broad jump, and runs a 4.5. And he's 6'1", weighs 210.
Tony, is it too late for me to change my pick?
No.
Okay.
It's just, yeah, he had well,
hey, better now than after 7 turnovers, but
he's a freak. He's just a freak athlete. The guy's just a freak. So, yeah.
No, I mean, all joking aside, I think that's gonna be closer than a lot of people think. I think it's, thank God you guys don't have Rising because
I don't.
You're this defense, Larry. Yeah. It's almost a crime that this happened the way it did, or maybe if you guys could have had this defense last year, because, God, you guys, you hate to see a season like this be wasted for the youth, especially a defense like you guys have right now because of injury. It really is a shame.
Yeah, and when you can claim that you're the number one rushing defense when you faced Montrell Johnson, Etienne. You've went up against UCLA. You've went up against Martinez. Look at it's not like these are against FCSs. I mean, Baylor's not the greatest team, but they're actually a running team. And that's what I mean, to have the number one rushing defense when you consider the backs that they've had to face. Did you know we have the sack leader in FBS as well?
No, I didn't know that.
Jonah Ellis has 9. The next guy is 7 in sacks. So, yeah, it's a good you're right. This is the year. This is the year our defense is just that. So,
what are these sacks you're talking about, Larry? I don't think we had any last game. I think we had like 1 tackle for loss.
Yeah, no, Jonah Ellis of Utah is the nation's sack leader in FBS. Utah has
he got to DJ at least once, or maybe even twice.
Well, he didn't. Jonah Ellis, we lost our backup defensive end, Fano. He tore his ACL and sacked DJ at the same time.
Oh, I remember that play.
Yeah, he was our backup, and he was doing really good. And he tore his ACL when he sacked DJ.
Well, I have a question regarding your secondary. Who's going to go out there for Cole Bishop in the first half?
So Nate, and this is what's crazy. Nate Ritchie is he played in 2020, went on a mission, came back. He filled in for Bishop and Vaki. So he filled in a little for Vaki and then Bishop once he was ejected. And what's really crazy is he fills in nice, and he was our highest graded defensive guy last week was Nate Ritchie, the guy that's our other safety. So you'll have Vaki and Ritchie at safety, strong and flex, and then Tao Johnson will play free safety. And they've actually done that a few times this year already. So
Connor, who have you got in this game?
Oh, I've gone back and forth. It's fun on Twitter to see all the banter between the two fan bases because there's been a recent rivalry ignited. Utah seems to think they are the blue blood of the Pac-12 coming at, which, I mean, they've won the Pac-12 championship. Can't take that away from them. But
They are the blue blood of the Big 12.
Yeah, that's the blue blood we're claiming. It's the Big 12, not the Pac-12. Come on, man.
I'll say you guys are blue blood of this decade, I guess.
Just wait till they add us then.
And you're definitely the blue blood of the Big 12. I think, aren't you the only ranked future Big 12 team?
Yeah, that's another topic for another show. But yeah,
I like the
well, no, I think what did I saw Caleb threw a little shade in an interview today. I don't know if he's going to paint his nails or not, but I love that. That's so fun to me. And Utah fans crying about it, like I love it.
Have grown men ever shed as many like raging tears about painted nails as we've seen from Salt Lake City in the last year?
It's the same thing with Shador and the watch. Like, I'm all about that. Like, bring the smoke, talk your trash, leave it all out on the field. And honestly, I think USC is going to wake up because that defense is better than USC fans think that the defense is. And I don't like to agree with Tim. Wink, wink. But he has a point about the front seven, specifically the D line. Muhammad is going to get to the quarterback. So it's in LA. I have USC just because a shootout Utah can't keep up. But I will say Bryson Barnes got rolling against us, and then he got injured. He took a spearing, targeting hit to the chest, and it knocked him out of the game. They had to go back to Nate Johnson. So if Bryson Barnes can get rolling, and if that defense, they need to hold them to 21 like they held us to 21. And DJ's not Caleb, but DJ this year is sneaky good. I don't think enough people are talking about him. His QBR is, I think, 85 or 86, one of the best in the pack. So I'm not going to rule out Utah because they're going to have a statement game here too. Both of these teams could still win the pack. And I love that this is being slept on as a game because before the season, if you were to think, like some of the media is treating this as a snooze fest, but this should be just as highlighted as Washington, Oregon.
I'll be watching this game like a hawk for sure.
Yeah. Well, how would you guys feel if I said? How would you guys feel if I said Cam was in? Now I know Tim's saying he doesn't think it'll make much of a difference because Cam hasn't played this year.
Well, hold on. Wait.
Right?
I'm sorry. I don't mean it wouldn't make. Sorry, if I said that, then I misspoke. I think because of your defense, it would make it a close game. I'm just saying it's not the same Cam Newton. Whoa,
Yeah.
Not the same Cam Rising that we saw last year. Meaning,
Right.
he's not going to come in and take over a game. However, Cam Rising, kind of like a Caleb Williams on one leg, can make a lot happen. So,
Right.
and really his legs are what I know more for than his throwing, to be honest. So, his physical style of play, just making plays happen, plays break down, etc., extending plays. As I said that, I misspoke, Larry. What I meant by that was
your clarification was perfect. Perfect.
Larry, can your hypothetical Cam Rising run 10 times a game?
Can he? Yeah.
Will he? No, but I'm saying that's part of the question to me is like if he was like full go and like everything and there's no ill effects, then I think it makes like a pretty huge difference. I still think it would make a difference, even though he would be rusty. Like I would expect him to be rusty, but even if he is rusty, it's still better than what you've been putting out there.
Right.
You're like in a similar situation to Oregon State last year in this way, in that you're just like looking for anything out of your quarterback, and if you can get it, like you can beat anyone because your defense is so good. But it's a struggle, man. So yeah, I think Cam would make a difference. I still would have trouble just picking against SC's offense at home just to outscore you.
Right.
Even though
Right.
your defense is that good.
Yeah.
But if you could turn it into a game like Oregon State did last year, then who knows? But without until the game happens, I have no idea whose style wins out.
Here's my thing.
Here's something.
Well, I'm sorry, Jackson. Here's my thing, Larry, really quick. With one loss, and you still have to play USC, Oregon, and Washington. It just doesn't seem like a likely scenario for the Utes to win the Pac-12. And for me, I'm thinking about Cam Rising's like NFL and long-term career, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's really what they're weighing up. I'll bet you if they were undefeated, I think the decision, I'm not saying it's just predicated on the fact that, but I wonder how much the fact that they have a loss already weighs in on that decision.
Right.
You know?
Well, like you say, you don't want to waste this defense. Most of these guys outside of, I think, Battle, all these guys are basically juniors, and then a couple of them are sophomores. A couple of them can't even leave. Like Baki is a sophomore. Lander Barton's a sophomore. Pretty much the whole defense could come back next year. Problem is some of those guys are going to be, they're going to be drafted. So I don't think Bishop's not going to stick around. He's going to get drafted. So, it would be a wasted year, and it's just hard to say what they're going to do. If we had a semblance of an offense, we could compete. And I've always said Cam Rising's like another coach on the field. So that's another big difference that we're missing. It's not just his running. He's allowed to check out of a play when the numbers match. He knows the playbook. You know what I mean? So that's where makes a big advantage. His legs are huge, but his brain is a lot more of an advantage than people realize, if that makes sense. So
hey, Larry,
we'll see.
Is there a part of you that thinks that Whittingham is playing the media and that this has been his plan all along to get Caleb back for this game, and they're downplaying whether or not he's going to be back, and he's going to dress out and he's going to start, but nobody's going to know about it until Saturday?
Well, yeah, he intentionally put that out there for Cam to possibly start the season so that teams had to run 2 scout teams for different quarterbacks. And so he did, that was out there. The doctor was interviewed 2 weeks ago. Well, it'll be 2 weeks as of the USC game. And the doctor said could be a week, could be 2 weeks. The doctor said this a week and a half ago. So we thought possibly Cal, but like Tim just said, I think it's up to Cam and what he wants to do for his future, in all honesty. So
I think he owes it if he's healthy enough. The NIL that he's getting, the fan base is slowly starting to turn on the team. And so he owes it to the defense. And he may just be like a Bo Nix versus Oregon State last year where he's not running the ball. I don't expect lateral jukes from Cam Rising. If he can get outside the pocket.
Or he could be a 39-year-old medical redshirt.
Yeah, I don't see much of an NFL future for Cam.
He'd be a great backup.
Like a Gardner Minshew. He'd be like a Gardner Minshew.
He'd be a great backup. I'm not saying the guy would be a great starter. I don't think his arm's strong enough. But as far as if, your quarterback goes down and you need a smart guy in there to dice up, do some stuff, run the system, I think he's a shoe-in for a backup, in my opinion.
A locker room would love a Cam Rising too. A quarterback room, just to come in and help the starter, like a young guy so I could see Cam having a long career doing that.
Yeah.
If Cam's playing, I'm gonna go Utah. If Cam's not playing, I'll stick with USC.
I was gonna say that for some people that are looking at the conference standings, USC still controls their own destiny, even though they lost to Notre Dame. Luckily, that's a non-con game, but they're unbeaten in conference play. And we see that
But
USC
to
lost
Jackson,
control.
to that
Yeah.
point, I think Oregon controls their own destiny. I think Utah controls their own destiny. I think Oregon State controls their own destiny. I think if any
True.
of those teams win out, it's going to come down to some funky head-to-head stuff, like with the rules,
Yeah.
to see who's in the championship game. But yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, this is exactly what I think we expected before the season, where we're halfway through the year and still anybody could step up. I mean, we get Washington at home, for example, so
Yeah.
that could be their one loss, and now you're pitting a bunch of one-loss teams at the end of the year, and so it's go time. And this is a big one. This is as big, like I said, as Oregon and Washington. I know the national media doesn't want to say so, but 18-14
Yeah.
right there.
I was going to say, Connor, I couldn't help but notice that I'm impressed with the red zone numbers on offense that Oregon State's got.
25 for 25.
Yeah, that is
DJ
fantastic. I'm loving
getting
it.
into-
I mean, those are the kind of numbers that could lead you to a 10-win season right there. I mean, it's like
11 win season. We can win
Ooh,
out. I
11.
mean, we needed a quarterback last year to do what we can still do this year. And every team is going to have a fluke game. And so if you look at that Wazoo game, that was our first real opponent. We came in the first half in slow motion. So DJU, he's been ramping up and getting better week to week. And we don't have the stud wide receivers, but we have fast wide receivers. We have a tall tight end for some height. And, you know, with our run game, we're not asking DJU to go out there and play hero ball. But if he can pick his shots and go deep down the field, he has had a handful of throws, long balls, 30 yards down the field that we didn't have a quarterback that could do last year. And it's flick of the wrist. It's NFL arm strength. The people paying attention to Oregon State are going to tell you DJU has revitalized his NFL hopes. And so I'm bullish. Again, we have Oregon, Washington at the end of the year, but and then Zona. Now you can't sleep on them.
Arizona's a tough one. Y'all got to be careful
team
with
that
them.
we expected before the year. I had pegged Arizona to be a year behind where Oregon State was, where Jonathan Smith had our program. And so Arizona's had a rocky road to this point, but if they're clicking and they're figuring it out, this is what I expected from them to be, like kind of that fourth or fifth best team in the pack, their ceiling at least. So we have to go to Arizona off of this bye week, and then at Colorado, which a healthy Travis Hunter, you can't just walk into especially into Boulder and expect to win.
True.
Unless
But
you're
key to
Stanford.
victory against Colorado is beat up on that defense. You're good to go.
Well, hey, I wanted to talk about this. I mean, we saw Io Manor for Stanford going shot for shot with Travis Hunter into the second half, and they were both exhausted. So if Travis Hunter is going to play both ways throughout the rest of the year, I think that you can get some on him from when he's on defense. So Colorado, you can't count them out. I think they'll have a good comeback game against UCLA after the bye week. But again, Io Manor for Stanford, he showed the country that, Travis Hunter is human.
Are you trying to get Chip Kelly fired?
I told you, Chris, Chip Kelly is still, his scheming, once they couldn't figure it out on offense against us, Moore had thrown a couple of picks by then. They put in this kid Schlee at quarterback, and they were running wishbone with him, exposing our defense. Our defense is good, but against a running quarterback, we really seem to struggle. And so Chip Kelly noticed that. If Chip Kelly, he's still an offensive guru. I think where you might ask for more from Chip would be in his recruiting and in his approach to like the young guys. But he's proving that with Dante Moore, Dante Moore is going to have a good career. That pick 6 though against us, that was his 3rd in a row. That's not a good sign for the young guy. But that's a freshman. That's freshman mistakes.
I'm just letting you know, that if we lose to Colorado, all hell is going to break loose.
That'll be ugly.
From all 5 UCLA fans.
Chris, we don't want to see Shedeur Sanders watch anymore. Okay, we're tired of it. This is a sport for men, not boys. We don't need to see your fingernails or your watches.
Will there be more Colorado fans in the Rose Bowl than UCLA fans?
Maybe it's already sold out.
Well, no, but here's my question, Chris: Is it actually sold out, or do they still have 40,000 seats covered by tarps?
They took off some of the tarps.
They took off some of the tarps.
Only 30,000's covered now.
Only 30,000 are covered.
It's with some of the tarps removed, it's like a little over 60,000, I believe.
Which is still bigger than almost everything in the Big 12. But
gents, I got a question about Washington State. Now, after
we're bringing Will in for fun too, because he's waiting.
I was going to say about Washington State. Now, they've had a magnificent start to start off the year. Do you think UCLA and Arizona gave a lot of a blueprint on how to beat Washington State? Because I'm going to be real. It looks to me like all you got to do is put a lot of pressure on Cam Ward, and you pretty much, that's game right there.
I think we gave people ideas, but I think it also has to do with the fact that I do think that they're like pretty banged up right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think in part it's in part being a little bit exposed, and it's a part, I think, being injured, not to the extent that like Utah and Arizona State are, but yeah, I think they're pretty hurt from what I understand.
Well, I hope they're doing all right. I mean, I hope they get to feeling better. I got a feeling things aren't going to be much better in Pullman as they go to Autzen Stadium. I mean, that's not going to be a sight I want to see. I'm just like,
I know head coach Dickert has denied it, but that game against Arizona, you can't help but wonder if they were lackadaisical in their approach, and if you don't wonder if Dickert is talking to Michigan State about a head coaching job. I can't explain a 44-6 showing. Arizona could have beaten them. I mean, it was still a toss-up game before the game, but to get demolished that bad.
Yes, Connor, it can happen. You can go on the road and get demolished that bad.
Hey, y'all's game wasn't even that bad.
Speaking of humiliating demolishment, just because he's waiting in the other room and we love him, we're bringing in Will anyway. We've got our friend
talk
Will
about
and
the
D.
Hartman mustache.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Hartman porn star mustache has replaced the lumberjack beard.
He went from good looking to God status.
Yeah, he's a legend.
Will and D, welcome to the show.
I'm sorry. What part of the 200 yards did he got passing made him God status? By the way, I'm just curious.
No, the mustache made him God status.
That background, though.
Yeah, what is that? Oh,
it's the down. It's the B down.
Wait,
Yeah.
are we?
Is it kind of like Gardner?
Victory sign down? Is that a thing now?
Oh wait, is this when Will used to be a friend of the show?
Cartoons at us now. Victory signs down. That's new. That's exciting. We've never had that.
Tyjon Lindsey did it to y'all 2 years ago when we won like 45-20 in the Coliseum. He did this.
You know, I think everyone had left the Coliseum at that point, so nobody saw it. Those were dark days.
Is Sam Hartman's mustache like Gardner Minshew's or no?
Oh, he's got some Gardner in him for sure.
I remember the things that people said about like Gardner Minshew, like he tucked his dad to bed at night, or he left the house in charge. He told his dad, "You're in charge of the house now. You're the man of the house," or something like that. Like I always remember the stuff people said 2019. It was like, oh man,
My
they almost
favorite
really
Gardner
love
Minshew-
Gardner Minshew. He's pretty cool, it seems.
My favorite Minshew moment was when he put the fake mustache on Coach Leach in a post game interview because all the fans had fake mustaches,
I love Coach Leach.
and Leach just went along with it.
I mean, was there? And by the way, is there ever anything better? Every so often, I just have to watch Leach do the Pac-12 mascots battle.
Yeah,
Well, what kind of powers does a Sun Devil have?
yeah, magical Sun Devils.
Exactly.
So how is Utah's defensive line looking? Like, do you think that, Larry, are you confident that they can get to Caleb or at least force him out?
Well, actually, USC's line actually against bull rushes weren't horrible. They missed a few exchanges, but I think they should be pretty good. I'm worried about Van Fillinger on the weak side because he's not the fastest guy. And that's the guy we need to put our speed edge on, because Caleb, if you've noticed, when he goes to his left, he's nowhere near the quarterback to his left that he is to his right. It's not even close. So you've got to keep a speed guy on the weak side. And so hopefully we'll be all right. Our defensive tackles we're 4 deep, and those guys are studs. So I've got nothing against the tackles, the ends. We've got 2 good ends, the sack leader in FBS, and then O'Toole came back last week, and he got about half a game in. So I'm feeling pretty good about the front 4.
If you can expose Tarquin on I think he's a right tackle. I think he's the Florida transfer. You can get to Caleb.
Well, you've got to be
Mason
careful.
Murphy's probably get the snaps at right tackle in this game. Tarkin was pulled out pretty early in the game against Notre Dame.
Yeah, they're going to switch. They're going to switch up their line a little bit, I'm sure. Their right tackle, he's not too bad in a stance against a bull rush, but if he's got a pull or reach block, he's kind of inept that way. So I imagine they're going to shift their line around a little bit this week, right, Tim? I'm sure.
My guess is they're going to move the pocket. I think they're going to bail on just sitting back with this line. I think the idea is going to try to move the pocket.
Yeah, I believe so too.
Do you think Do you think your DBs will be able to bait Caleb like ours did?
I'm gonna let you in on a little secret, Will. There's some things that Lincoln Riley does, and there's some things his players do that kind of telegraph what the play is. And I'm not going to say it here, but I kind of found it, and I talked to another guy, and I told him, I said, look for these keys right here, and you can tell what play it is. And so he went through and got 19 out of 20 plays right. And this is a guy that's just kind of like a coach's part-time, if that makes sense, like little league stuff. So,
well, to Will's point, if you look at our game versus USC last year and Notre Dame's this year, that was our key last year. We had 2 NFL corners. Notre Dame probably has 2 NFL corners.
Yeah.
So if
personnel,
you can,
personnel
press man coverage, you can make those receivers look less than advertised.
Right, but you got to have the personnel to do it. We do have two bigger corners, but Brendan
This is
Wright,
where you're missing CP3.
I would actually disagree with that comment, Connor. The game against you guys, it was an issue of coverage and Caleb just being off, like throwing poorly. You guys were not really harassing him like Notre Dame did. Notre Dame beat USC by just absolutely manhandling them up front, getting to him, getting him outside the pocket. We'll try to get him outside the pocket and really just bagging balls down the front. The game against you is there were open receivers And I full credit to your corners because they did have a great game. But Caleb missed about a half dozen throws he normally makes in that game. In this game, Caleb was just like bottled up by Notre Dame completely.
Yeah, I think it was.
I'll give some credit to
personnel.
Reeser.
Yeah.
I love how during that when Tim was giving credit to Notre Dame, Will sat back in his chair. There's just a subtle grin on his face, just soaking it all in.
What else am I going to say? That was just absolute. That on defense, what they did to, as much as everyone thinks now all of a sudden that Lincoln can't coach anymore, what that defense did to USC offense is pretty damn special. So I'm not going to talk any crap about what their performance was.
They held Ohio State to what, like 17? So Notre Dame probably shouldn't have 2 losses.
Do you guys? So is Barnes definitely gonna play if Cam can't go?
Yeah, it would be Barnes if Cam can't go.
The pig farmer.
Yeah, the pig farmer, the former walk-on. Yep,
Love
it
that.
would be him. But I don't know. Some of us are hopeful Cam will get in. We're not going to know until we actually see him literally pregame taking snaps in a uniform from the starting center. That's when you'll know he's going to start. But the doctor did say could be a week, could be 2 weeks, and that was almost 2 weeks ago. So,
hey, not to change the topic, but I wanted to talk Oregon-Washington. Chris and I were DMing back and forth, but if you looked at the 4th down calls that Oregon called to where Dan Lanning is being risky, you know, he's trying to win the game. I don't disagree with the decision, but it was the same exact 4th and short call that he called against Oregon State, where Bo Nix kind of rolled out. The run was there for him, or kind of like a pass. So how much is that going to affect Oregon down the stretch where these risky calls, risky decisions are not going to be rewarded because they're not opening up the playbook for Bo Nix? I think that hurts them overall. I think Dan Lanning's still young, and I love the decision, but if you don't put your guys in the right situation, then that's not a good decision.
Yeah. So when I'm talking about the 4th down stuff, I'm like separating the decision from the play call, right? And your point, your point.
They showed it against us, the same play calls.
Yeah, your point is taken, but I don't know a good way of trying to say what I'm trying to say, so I'm going to stop talking. But yeah, I don't know how much of that is just like unfortunate or how much of that is like a issue for them. Because I think in other games they're pretty successful. They've had, I think that they've had a couple of big moments for them not go well. Your game last year being one of them, and then obviously this past weekend. But I think they do it a lot, and I think it's paid off for them more often than it hasn't. It's just these big moments of like exacerbated, I think, some of the feelings about it.
0-3 versus his rivals, Washington and Oregon State. So we'll see how we play them this year. But to your point, they did pull it off last year against Wazoo. So again, I'm not questioning the decision to go for it. I just think Dan Lanning's got to have more up his sleeves in those situations, more trick calls, more movement pre-snap, more audibles at the line. And I wonder if it's going to happen to Oregon again this year. I think we're sleeping on this game this weekend just because Wazoo is coming off a horrible loss. But how much of a bounce back game? How fired up is Wazoo going to be to go into Autzen for the last time, possibly in a long time? I think we're not talking enough about this game being a possible upset.
I personally don't think Oregon's going to be in that situation until they face USC and Utah. Last year, Oregon pretty much had Washington until Bo Nix got hurt. And then last year, this year, it was a 3-point game, and it was at Husky Stadium. So a neutral field, I would still take Oregon over Washington.
More complete team, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think their running game is better than Washington. Their receivers aren't a doomsday, but when you've got that good of running backs, the offensive line's pretty decent, and you've got a super mobile quarterback and a lot of studs on defense all over the field. I think Oregon's a better team. I don't think Dan Lanning's going to be in the position to have to do that until he plays USC and Utah. I don't think anybody
Oregon
else.
State.
Not at Oregon State. This has not had real good luck up at Autzen.
Rivalry game, though.
Yeah, I know.
They've never beaten Oregon and Autzen since Chip got in, right? Maybe that one year. Did you guys ever beat them since Chip?
I'll have to look on my phone, but I know it's been probably about 10 years.
As far as I recall, Oregon State never beat Oregon when Chip Kelly was head coach.
I know there's that one year when Oregon was bad, like the last Helfrich year.
In 2019, it was close in Autzen when we weren't supposed to be that good, and they were kind of on a down year. And we still lost that game. Here, I can tell you in a second. The last time that we beat Oregon
in 2019.
Yeah, the last time we beat Oregon in Autzen was 2007. So it's been a while.
Oh, yeah. That was when Oregon was having the quarterback injuries, like with Dennis Ditson and the backup quarterback.
But if there's a year where we're going to do it.
Tony, as a bit of a Sparty fan, what do you think about Jake Dicker to MSU? Do you think he's a great fit?
Maybe. MSU is a great place for a coach who wants to be there. It's a great place for somebody who's really good at building. I think they need somebody who can really recruit. And it's hard because he's had a lot of success. Jake Dickert, I think, is awesome. He's a defensive guy, so the question is, sort of what kind of a plan would he have for offense? Can he come in there and make the splash? I don't know, because I think they kind of need a bit of a splash. They need somebody who's really hungry and wants to win and wants to be there. He certainly has a great personality. He's a fantastic coach. I would love to see him be successful there. The question is, is he the next? Could he be the D'Antonio? Could he be the Saban? I remember, when Saban came in, so they need. I think they usually find somebody who's really hungry for success, and those are the guys that have the most success there.
He's from that part of the country. I would just add that it's telling to me that Scott Barnes pulled his name out of the Washington athletic director hunt, and Dickert has denied publicly talking to Michigan State. So that gives me hope that Oregon State and Washington State.
I think Barnes pulled his name out because they were hiring the Tulane guy.
Did they announce that already?
Yeah, they hired the Tulane guy.
Oh, okay. Well, Barnes pulled his name out pretty soon during the hunt, which gave Oregon State fans hope that we had something cooking.
Maybe
for the Pac-12.
By the way, that's not a rip on Oregon State. That's just a lot of times you hear people oh, I took a lot of people took their name out of the USC job after they picked Jen Cohen.
True.
So always take those weird rumors with a grain of salt.
Hey, we're still hopeful in Corvallis.
Hey, and Barnes is awesome. By the way, but I don't mean that ending on Barnes. Barnes is stinking awesome. He's
oh yeah, we're hyped that he wants to stay. He's turned around our entire athletic program. from hiring
Yeah.
Smith to keeping our baseball program at the tippy top.
And let's get you guys in a good conference. We'll be good to go. Although I do kind of love the idea of the Pac-2. I'm leaning
know.
more into the idea of the Pac-2 and just like, bilk the CFP for every dollar they owe the Pac-12.
It's turned into
I'm totally okay with
a
bilking the
plan
CFP.
1A, because if you get that CFP money, you can keep the staff, you can continue to recruit at a high level, you can pay the other athletic programs for another 5-6 years till the next round of realignment comes up.
Well, you
Or
have
we
two.
keep the
You have 2
seats
years.
warm. No, I know. I'm just saying if we get that money, the CFP money for one of those 2 years, that can stretch out for 5 to 6 years.
Yeah. There's a lot of potential with that. And I mean, I know the CFP has ways of like twisting arms and everything like that, but if they could make it work, I don't mind it.
Kirk Schultz sitting on the CFP board means that no votes, all the votes on the CFP have to be unanimous. So Kirk Schultz is playing his best politician, filibuster, congressman kind of role. I just wonder that line you want to flirt to not create all these enemies when he's just sitting there just filibustering.
Although, I'll tell you, I do. So if you guys have read the ebook that we put together, like, I kind of think he has a very huge responsibility piece in the fall of the Pac-12.
And now he can redeem himself, at least for the Pac-2.
Hey, if he could, it would be something else. But we'll see.
On your book's topic, I think you might need to leave room for an addendum to wait to see what comes out of mediation.
Oh no, it's so by the way, anybody who downloads it, it saves your email. We'll send you updated copies because we are going to add to it.
Because the story's not done yet.
I like this. I like this question from Troy. How would the Pac-2 work? Best of 10 wins the conference, or do they have a playoff?
I like to joke that if we're 6-6, could we still beat Wazoo in the championship game? And like, would we still be the highest ranked G or Power Conference champion if we're 8-4?
Well, and remember, under the current system, you wouldn't have to be the highest. You'd have to be the highest or the second highest. So like Air Force or Tulane or whatever could be better. You could just be the next one.
We could be 8-4, right behind the other G5.
Right behind Air Force and make it.
Exactly. Because I don't know. I mean, apparently there's a schedule out there. So
one of the other funny twists, by the way, in that ridiculous Pac-12 history. The UC Regents, we talk a lot about how they're out of date, like out of touch. And so when the Pacific Coast Conference was falling apart, they created a whole bunch of new rules for the schools that they had to play. They had to meet all these academic standards and athletic standards and all this. And they pushed it out there and they voted on it and they passed it. And there were 9 schools in the country that met those requirements. They didn't bother to check, by the way. They just wrote them and passed them. And they were the 8 Ivy League schools who wouldn't play Cal and UCLA and Michigan. That was it. Not even Stanford. So there is precedent, for Pac teams trying to play 9 games against the same team.
I know. Well, it makes me wonder what schedule that we're planning on using if this is what we're threatening. I mean, are we going to have to pay if we get these assets, the liquid assets specifically?
Well, there's not much. Here's the thing. There's not much assets in the pack. The assets, the only thing that is really coming in, there's the basketball money that will come in for 5 years. And then because it's a 6-year rolling thing, and that will start to dry up. So there's actually not that it'll kind of be more and then it'll dry up because you won't be winning games in the tournament.
But the network revenue from this year I read was about 40 mil. So are we going to have to take all that?
So you'll get this year's money, but then there won't be any more. The only money coming in would be the basketball money that's like 60 million
70.
over 6 years.
Yeah.
And then whatever's going on, whatever happens with the college football playoff, the emergency fund is vanquished.
That's going to Comcast, right?
Yeah. Well, it's partially. I mean, so the Comcast thing is settled this fiscal year, but part of the settling of it is apparently, again, this is according to John Wilner's reports. I don't have the accountings. According to John Wilner's reports, the Comcast settlement, And by the way, the Comcast settlement, it's not a settlement. What it is, guys, for those of you guys who don't know, it's not a settlement. They're not paying Comcast anything. Comcast pays a huge amount to the Pac-12 every year. So last year, they did half of it. And this year, they're doing half of it. And they're just paying the Pac-12 less. So a lot of people think there's like, oh, they're going to go bankrupt. No, they're just, Comcast is paying the Pac-12 a little bit less.
Yeah, and so
there's no wild settlement. And the lawsuit about Comcast is not about Comcast. It's about the two jackasses who hid the Comcast overpayment, who knew about it in 2016 and hid it from the board and got their sorry butts fired.
Was it one of those things where they were like, these two knew, like, they're getting overpaid, and they're just like, oh, well, maybe Comcast won't realize that they're overpaying?
Yes, that's exactly what happened. Not only that,
that's like
they
something I would
hired
do
an
with my bills.
Okay, this is also in the ebook, all the details of this. They hired an auditing firm, a media rights auditing firm, who audited it and said, Comcast is paying you too much. Because the thing of it is remember that like Comcast calculates this. It's not like the Pac-12. Comcast just sends the check and the numbers. And you don't have any say. You can't see it, all that. Comcast just does their math, sends you the check and the numbers. And the auditing people looked at it and they added it all up and they were like, this is wrong. You're getting overpaid. And they said, well, it's on Comcast. I guess we're fine. And those two nitwits who got their sorry butts fired, the CFO and the president of the Pac-12 networks, hid it from the board. Now, they claim they told Larry Scott. The lawyers actually that investigated, the investigating lawyers did not find that claim credible. So we don't know whether they told Larry Scott or not, and who knows Larry Scott either way. But they actually, not only did they not do anything, they stopped the audit in process that was analyzing it. These two nitwits. They stopped. It sounds like something
that you or I would do when like your company overpay, like you get a paycheck that's just too big for a couple of weeks, and you're just like, I just won't. This doesn't seem right, but maybe they won't notice.
And you let that go for 10 years.
Yeah.
And you're still there, by the way. You're still the CFO 5 years later, and then all of a sudden Comcast finds it, and the Pac-12 finds out that these two turds knew the whole time. So, you know what? They got fired. And
story.
The only positive thing about their getting fired, I would say, is that because they have this new lawsuit, we're getting all sorts of, like, we, the public, are getting all sorts of inside dirt on the Pac from the documentation from their lawsuit. Like, for example, because of that lawsuit, we got the letters from USC that show that USC did not give up their board seat.
But also, don't we have George Kliavkoff with a sworn-in statement saying that USC and UCLA have relieved their voting
that's not
status?
what it's about. There is one comment in a footnote. Remember, though, that in the past year, so USC has recused themselves from its role from the media rights and expansion discussions. Remember that all of the Pac-12 board meetings in the past year have been about expansion and media rights.
I read that it was a sworn statement. What does that mean? Under oath?
So he has a whole affidavit where he explains all the stuff about these two nitwits who got fired. And in a footnote to that, he says that USC, because he's like talking about the structure of the Pac-12. In the footnote to that, he says USC and UCLA are not on the board. That does not really mesh up with the other things. But again, they're not functioning on the board because the board is only dealing with media rights and expansion for the past year. Now, there are some debates, but one of the interesting things, again, we don't have all the board minutes or anything, but the board does not appear to have taken any action to do anything about that. The board didn't fix the bylaws. The board didn't take them out of the bylaws. They're still in the bylaws. So all these things that a board would have done, the Pac-12 never did.
Right. There was never a vote. There was never a vote.
Yeah, there's no vote about it. They didn't
there
take
was no vote.
They said, you're off the board. And USC said, well, we're not going to participate in this, but we are not off the board. And USC, gave all the legal arguments, and then they just never did anything, right? Because it doesn't really matter. It didn't really matter at the time.
The mediator's very good.
The
we're
mediator's
not going to
very
get
good, yes.
everything that we want, and you're not going to get. We're not all going to leave happy, but we're all not going to leave disappointed. So where do you see this ending up?
I think USC and UCLA will leave just fine happy, because they're going to say the thing that USC and UCLA are going to say is, we just want to make sure we're not getting screwed out of this year.
And you're not, but you mean money wise. So you think that some of the network money from this year will get split?
It'll be split evenly, like it should be.
And so what does Oregon State and Washington State get out of that? What do the other 10 lose? Because everybody comes to mediation.
So here's the thing.
Something to
Everyone
lose.
will get, this is what I believe. Everyone will get 1/12, which is exactly what they should get. Of the fiscal year 2024 money, everyone should get 1/12. And I think that's what the mediator will make sure.
Still get the future tournament basketball money?
So the basketball tournament money depends on whether the conference is dissolved or not. Now, if they want to have a separate fight on that, that's a separate fight.
Meaning, obviously, if we were added to a conference and we're using this as leverage, then we would dissolve the conference. We would vote to dissolve it. That was the intent of the TRO, was to stop the rest of the 10 schools from dissolving.
Yeah.
So I could see
now, because remember, the other thing that happens technically is, I believe, and somebody in the chat correct me if I'm wrong in this, I believe this is right. If the conference dissolves, then that money from the basketball tournament goes to the new conference.
Okay.
So,
and
like,
then, let's say,
I mean, by the way, we're still getting money, for example, I believe, from your Elite Eight run, for example.
Yeah. So let's say
that money will go to wherever you are.
We keep the brand, we split the money, we keep the network.
So here's the thing: the network right now is only a cost. That's a big negative, because there's no money to distribute the network.
Unless we sell I mean, how much? If we sell all the equipment, I mean, how much? That's 50 million or something.
No, probably like 5.
Oh,
maybe, probably less.
Yeah, I mean,
used equipment is not.
I just think of all of the.
I don't know what it would be, but I shouldn't guess. Somebody in the comments, some keyboard warrior in the comments is going to be really mad that I just threw out a random number. Retract that. I didn't say that.
Do you think the leverage with the CFP money is enough for the other power conferences to pressure the networks in the Big 12 into taking us?
I don't know what the contracts are with the CFP. I mean, this is the kind of thing, quite honestly, unless you are a serious contract lawyer. I mean, granted, we have one of them down the screen from me.
But you would figure that we would be in the Mountain
I'm
West
not reading
already.
it.
If our lawyers didn't think that we had a real shot with leverage, then you would think we would have already accepted our fate.
I don't know. Your lawyers think that the Pac-12 was founded in 1915, and it was not.
Our lawyer's good, from Cal.
well, it's certainly better than the nitwit that the Pac-12 put out there.
He's playing on the hearts and minds. He's playing on the hearts and minds to say the PCC, the Pac-12 is a continuation of the PCC.
Which is so not true.
It's not, but it's a good story to tell.
We've
been around for 100 years. It's better than we've been around for 40 years, 50 years.
No, it is. It is funny. By the way, the Pac-12 continues to claim that it's the PC. It was the PCC as well, and and I love it too, because you guys forget that President Strand got you kicked out too.
Who was that? The Oregon one?
He was the Oregon State one. He's the one who wrote the letter. We have the letters in the ebook too, where he told Cal and UCLA that they thought they were purebreds, but they were just mongrel strays, and everybody knows it.
Is that far off?
He literally called them dogs. It was pretty funny. No, I'm fine with it. Anyway, no, there were some wild days, but no, they ignore all that. But I mean, the other bigger thing is, again, I think they'll come to a mediated solution. But we'll see what it is.
We're not all going to be happy.
Yeah, I'm told, by the way, that USC is not. And by the way, to everybody else, I'm told that USC and this is real. People are telling me this. The USC is the most hands-off of anybody in this process. They're like, just give us our check for this year, and y'all do your thing.
Yeah, y'all getting full share. So y'all don't need future basketball money coming in. Y'all are set.
Well, I mean, and the thing is, the basketball money is not that much when you're looking at it like, in a 12 way.
No, 67 divided by 12 is
over 6 years.
5.5.
Yeah.
Well,
over 6 years.
I think you saw Oregon back out, and that's why Washington did this. I don't know, whatever Washington did to lead the other 9.
Well,
And
Washington
Oregon
has to, because it has to be an institution in the state of Washington.
But I was just going to say, I think we took Oregon to legislature to, like, taxpayers' dollars, and we said, hey, Oregon is hurting Oregon State. And I think you saw a settlement there outside of the courtroom where Oregon agreed the day after our president was in court. You saw Oregon post their future.
No, your president was
schedule.
at the state. Your president was at the state legislature.
Yeah. So, but the day after that, you saw Oregon post their Big Ten schedule, which to me was like, oh, that's a white flag. They're admitting they're going to the Big Ten and basically saying, we have said that we're leaving and we're going to yield to.
No, but here's actually the real issue. And this is true. This is not like being a homer. This is like the real thing. It's like the idea of like originalism. So like, depending on how you read the contract, like, is the real issue, or the bylaws, I'm sorry, in the country. The real issue is it about giving notice of leaving? Is it about the leaving, or is it about the notice? So for example, is it like, oh, it's fine to leave, you just have to keep it a secret? Or is it about not leaving? Well, the point of the bylaw is clearly about not leaving the conference early, because they have the media contract. They have to fill the game. So the point of the bylaw, again, poorly written bylaw, but the point of the bylaw is about, did you leave the conference early? Not written very well. So it's about notice of leaving the conference early. That's the purpose of it. Now, they're twisting the word of, it's about the notice. It's not really about the notice. It's about the leaving. So now the question
which is where I think
because it's so poorly written, though,
and the judge come in handy.
Exactly, because it's so poorly written. Now they're in a kangaroo court, right? Because the judge is literally the president of the Cougar Club of Whitman County.
Let's go.
He's literally a Wazoo booster.
Love to see it.
So
that can cause you guys problems, Connor, because he should have recused himself, and I don't know if anybody signed off yet. I mean, it's just a temporary restraining order, and it hasn't reached the court yet. But like Washington, anybody that's claiming as a third party, they have to sign off on conflict of interest. And I don't know if they would have done that yet, not with a temporary restraining order, possibly because they were suing Kliakoff. So there's a bunch more steps that can go. And even if this judge, mediation goes, nothing gets settled, I mean, other states can also appeal it and file. Like, this guy should be recusing himself.
Well, and not only that, there's all sorts of other state issues, right? I mean, the Pac-12 was actually based in California. I mean, there's all sorts of things that, like, it's going to be a mess.
Yeah, it's a mess. But
that's why I think they're going to come out with a mediated. The mediation is going to get the answer.
Chris?
We don't get that far because we put our balls on the line and said, we're not going to roll over. We're going to put it with our judge, and we're going to twist the words with our A-team lawyer.
Hey, and then the Pac-12 brought in,
y'all don't want the fight.
Just real quick to Larry. Larry. I come on here to get away from my job. So I'm gonna let you guys hash it out.
All right, sorry, Chris. We'll let you go on that. All right, hey gang, we are way over time, but
yeah, my bad.
Oh no, I love it. But hey, let's get ready to wrap up here. Who's got some final thoughts on the games this week?
I'm not going first.
I'll go first. So, to you Trojan guys, I hope we have a great game. And like I always say, I hope everybody comes out of there without injuries. It always seems like there's a quarterback hurt every damn time USC and Utah plays, whether it's Utah's or USC. So, I'm just hoping we can all get out of there healthy and put on a good show.
All right. Thank you, Larry. And Larry, thank you for joining us. By the way, guys, if you have not yet subscribed to Larry, follow him at Pac-12 Pilgrim. Follow his channel. Larry is the man, and we love him. Fight on, Larry. All right, who's next?
I can go next. I don't know. I'm just very interested to see how USC will bounce back. Just what Lincoln Riley can be able to do with this team, how much improved that they'll look. And I'm curious to see if Cam Rice is going to be back for Utah. I think the favorites should be able to hold serve. Maybe the Cougs can make it interesting in Autzen. But yeah, just Pac-12 has been awesome this season. Can't wait to keep watching it.
Thank you, Will. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks, guys.
I'll jump
Jackson?
in real quick. Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead,
yeah, SC Utah, obviously the real interesting game, and I hope that the rest of them are as boring and good for UCLA as point spreads suggest. I just like to thank everybody for hanging out and have a good weekend. Go Bruins.
Thanks, Chris. All right, Jackson, you want to go?
Absolutely. I am pretty excited about the Utah USC game. It looks like it's going to be a magnificent game. I am curious to see a little bit of UCLA Stanford. Arizona State Washington. That looks like that's going to be a 500 passing yard game for Michael Penix Jr. He's going to be fantastic on Saturday night on Pac-12 After Dark. And Oregon, Washington State, well, Oregon looks pretty mad. And Washington State, I wish them nothing but awesomeness, but it's going to be rough for you gents at Autzen Stadium. But yeah, it's going to be a fun week of Pac-12 football, but I just hope things get better for Washington State. And you can also check out, see what I got to say on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. And I'm excited to talk about Tony's new ebook next Tuesday with Tony. It's going to be fantastic, and it's going to be lovely. And I'm especially excited to talk about the Coach Red Sanders oopsie daisy that he had in the
there's
hotel
a lot of Red Sanders oopsie daisies. He's a wild character.
and you know, oh man, that was wow. It's going to be fun discussing the history of the Pac.
I'm looking forward to it, Jackson. Fight on.
Roll Tide and fight on.
Excuse my disgruntled Pac-2 approach to the end of the conversation there, gents. We're still in it. We're still a disgruntled family, and I want some of that from USC Utah. I want USC to be pissed because people are talking mad trash. USC sucks. Fire Grinch. I want Utah to be pissed because they can't do anything on offense without Cam Rising. I want fingernails. I want trash talk. I want Whittingham leaving Cam out in the air. Question, is he going to play till the last minute? And then Cam Rising comes on the field, hair blown in the wind, starting QB1, down to the wire. Classic Pac-12 football. Wazoo, Pac-2 brother, I want you to come into Autzen, and Oregon State will be right there behind you, backing you up, because everybody's counted Wazoo out, and Oregon's sleeping. You know, Oregon's coming off a loss, but you don't hear Oregon fans talking that they could lose to Washington State. Let's go. We're running through this brick wall, baby. I want some after dark madness. Stanford, you did it against Cal. Serge, I'm sorry, but I would love for Stanford to come back and make a showing. Arizona State, Kenny Dillingham. We're talking about the worst two teams in the Pac-12, Stanford and ASU. But all Pac-12 history will tell you it doesn't really matter. One of these teams is going to make it a game. Now, I don't know if it's going to be Washington, but look out, UCLA. And with that said, Kenny Dillingham is going to have some tricks up his sleeve. Just let go of the whole playbook. And they're coming off a bye, if I'm not remiss, so they're going to be ready to go. We got to beat the bye. We got this. Colorado against the bye. Zona. We got a lot of teams off. So we're all talking about USC and Utah, but I'm gonna be watching all of them.
All
Pack
right.
to pack.
Hey, thanks for calling. Fight on, Connor.
Yeah, go Beavs.
Go Beavs. All right, Tim.
Just really, thanks, Tony. So Tony has it right there in front of you, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 Pacific, with Matt and myself doing the call-in show. And just want to remind Roger Dodger that Jack Lambert needed a couple teeth up front. He was missing more than one.
I like it. Well, hey, as Tim said, a couple shows here, guys, for everybody that we'd love to have you guys join us here in the Voice of College Football community. On Friday night, Tim is going to host the USC Conquest call-in show, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 Pacific. Join him. Saturday night, 11:30 Pacific, about 8:30. I'm sorry, 11:30 Eastern, 8:30 Pacific. We'll be having USC postgame live, and Oregon will be also live that night. So check it out. Thank you to everybody who checked out. We got our fun ebook. I think you guys who like the Pac-12, like realignment, like wild college football history will get a kick out of it. So definitely check it out. Link is in the description and in the chat. Thank you guys for joining us. Thanks to everybody who called. Have a great time watching the games. We'll see you next week. And as always, fight on.